Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
What Sabian did, they replicated all the sizes and weights. So my cymbals are, but I don't care. You could have everything down to playing them with Buddy sticks. They just don't sound like Buddy. There is something about the way that man could sit down behind this, basically a John Bonham rock drum set, and play with such finesse.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Hey everybody, welcome to Jackie's Groove. This is Jackie Bertoni, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network. You're into all things music. Guys, I'm excited today. We're celebrating, we're proud and privileged to be asked to be part of this amazing celebration, the centennial of Buddy Rich. Buddy would have been 100 years old this coming September. We lost him 30 years ago, but his music will forever reign in our hearts. For the drummers and everybody out there in the jazz world and the like. Today, I've got on my show Buddy's daughter, Cathy, and also Gregg Potter. It's a Monday. I apologize, guys. We had a little bit of a technical glitch getting on this morning, so we're here and we're here to celebrate. So it's Gregg, and that's Gregg. Potter. So you guys, welcome with open arms and open ears, Cathy and Gregg to Jackie's Groove. Hi guys, welcome.
Hey Jackie, how are you?
Man, hello. It's a Monday. It's a quintessential Monday. You know, what could go wrong is going to go wrong, but you know what? We got our feelers out there, and we've got a plethora of questions from the young and old drummers alike worldwide who want to know all about Buddy and Buddy's legacy and where it all started from. And I can help out everybody by starting by saying Buddy was brought into this beautiful world on September 30th, 1917 of a Jewish-American family, Bess and Robert. And we lost Buddy on April 2nd, 1987, which seems like it was yesterday. And to be honest with you, Cathy and Gregg, I've been overdosing on great clips of your father on Johnny Carson Classics. And just the attitude with your dad alone, just the repertoire between Johnny and Doc and Eddie Shaughnessy, and every time he would jump on Eddie's drums or if they'd have a backline ready for your father. I just want to ask you personally, Cathy, growing up rich, and I'm saying that, kind of a double entendre there, but, I've been blessed and privileged to interview the kids of the great stars, my dear friend of mine, my bandmates, Carney Wilson from Wilson Phillips. And then she told her stories, amazing stories of coming down the stairs and at the piano, and her dad would be sitting there with some guy by the name of Paul McCartney. Then the next day it'd be Elton John. So with that said, share with the audience out there, Cathy, if you would be so kind, what was it like growing up in the Rich household?
It's interesting because I get asked that question a lot. And to me, and I'm sure as to most children of people who are famous, right, it's your normal life. So, to walk downstairs and see Paul McCartney is probably her normal life. And for me to open the door and there stands Frank Sinatra is my normal life. So, it wasn't until after my father was gone that you realize not everyone has this life and that it's a blessing. It was amazing. It still is amazing. The doors that he has opened and the people that still 30 years after his passing, love him, and his fans are unbelievable. So, yes, it's been an amazing life.
Cathy, did you get what Dad did growing up?
I knew that he did something different than most of my friends' parents. Right. Because obviously he worked very late at night, or he traveled all the time, or, different, as I was saying, the Frank Sinatras and Jerry Lewis and Mel Torme and Ella Fitzgerald and, all the people would be at our home. And that to me just seemed, they were just family friends. So it wasn't until probably I was in maybe 6th grade that I realized that, yeah, he definitely did something different for a living.
Was Dad a present father? Was he an absentee dad? I don't mean that in a negative, because obviously in the entertainment world you're way more than you want to. Were you a daddy's girl?
Absolutely, to this day, which is kind of crazy. But carrying on the legacy, it brings me close to him every day. So that's a blessing too. But as far as being an absentee father, he traveled a lot, certainly.
Right.
But he was present as any father that was living in the home, because he knew everything I did. He knew everywhere I was. He knew he was at every function that I ever did at school. So it didn't feel like he was away, because he would call 3 times a day. So I always knew that he was, involved in my life. Mm-hmm. And then when I was off of school or on vacation, I traveled with him. So it was the best of all worlds.
And Buddy was so much bigger than life. I mean, again, too, the whole last week, I've always been a fan of Buddy itself. I mean, how many shows have you seen where even if you weren't listening to the background or the actual music itself, he always had Dad in a monitor somewhere. I mean, I saw it recently on The Sopranos, and
right.
And just watching his manic ways of playing. I mean, he's considered to be the quintessential drummer, the who's who of all the drummers in the history of drumming. And thankfully on Jackie's Groove, I've had the who's who of drummers on the show and upcoming also. But I want to just jump forward here to Gregg. Gregg, my God, how is it, or how difficult is it to sit there and fill the shoes of Buddy Rich?
Well, I mean, going at it just right off the top, I'm not trying to fill that guy's shoes.
Of course not.
I just had a week of trying to fill Dave Weckle's shoes. I mean, there's enough. Just go on YouTube. There's 7-year-old Indonesian children that play the drums or play the violin. Right. I mean, there are talented people everywhere. So getting back to what's it like to sit in that Buddy Rich chair, I'm
right.
saying if you go at it trying to think you're even going to fill his shoes, it's more of like, I don't look at it like that, because
okay.
I really do think that there are great drummers, amazing drummers, and then there's Buddy. I mean, there really isn't any. You're right. I get to play with the band. I get to play with the men that actually played with Buddy. So I'm saying I'm as close to it, I think, as you could humanly be, and not to mention Cathy stands within 7 feet of my drum throne. So
right.
I mean, if it's like you want some kind of
reality check.
Well, yeah, reality check, or just a matter of to make sure you know where it's going somewhere. Take for instance, we're in London. You got Bob Bowlby playing in the sax section with us. Who played night after night with Buddy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you're going to come into this thing and think you're going to out-wow these guys or out-Buddy, or I'm Buddy, I'm telling you, I never looked at it like that. And I think that's how we're able to even, quote-unquote, get away with it. Because realistically, yes.
No, Gregg, how did the gig come to you? Excuse me for interrupting. How did that gig get to you?
Well, okay, it's not so much that the gig came to me. Now, you do understand Cathy and I are in a relationship.
Of course.
And so our whole relationship really isn't based on, wow, did Buddy actually practice his left hand more than his right hand? Does he? Right. I mean, it wasn't that we were all about drums, and drumming. But over the last, say, 25 years, Cathy had done those Buddy Rich memorial concerts. Every couple of years, she'd have a big concert where she would present, the Buddy Rich band with 6 to 8 of the biggest drummers in the world would come and sit in. Everyone from Vinnie Colaiuta to Chad Smith to Neil Peart to Peter Erskine to everybody. I mean, Steve Gadd, Louis Bellson. I mean, everyone comes and plays with the band. Well, what she found throughout all that is not only did, of course, the people come out and they love when you would get Louis Bellson up there or Peter Erskine or, men that really do get the big band jazz thing. But she noticed that whenever you get these rock drummers, let's say, your Terry Bozio's, your Neil Peart, Chad Smith, Matt Sorum, I mean, the interest level, and remember, Buddy's statement to Cathy when he was passing was that keep my band out there and get this music to young people. You know, I mean, I'm kind of giving you like motivation for the scene here. You said, how did this gig come to me? I'm kind of giving you background to Cathy's vision, or Cathy's idea was, because when you think about it, even when you listen to, I don't know how much of a Buddy file you are, like how you completely into Buddy and the albums and stuff, but think about Buddy doing tunes like Norwegian Wood, or actually even doing Gino Vanelli covers. He's doing all this stuff when those artists are still charting themselves. You know what I mean? So Buddy wasn't exactly, you know, so I'm saying he was thinking that far ahead. You know what I mean? So getting back to these rock drummers or these younger drummers sitting, because unfortunately when it gets to big band jazz and all, a lot of these drummers are, well, Ed Shaughnessy's gone, Louis Bellson's gone, Peter Erskine's still alive, but I'm just saying, you know, to spike younger people's interest, sometimes you need this spice up the scene, you know. So getting back to me, so Cathy and I mean, I'm a regular working drummer, and yes, I studied through my college years, studied music, but I'm saying I wasn't playing in like a 3-piece jazz, you know, or a jazz ensemble somewhere, and Cathy came by and went, you know what, I really think we need that style of swing to go with the big band. It was more of Cathy and I, or Cathy, we were always thinking of ways of getting Buddy's music out to younger people. I mean, with YouTube and, you know, just how you're able to, with your phone, you could say, hey, I want to see something. You get it now. So how can we get Buddy out there for young people? So the first thing we're thinking of, you can do these memorial concerts, one every 3 years or something. That's like a nice big, that's a nice home run, but you have 9 more innings to go or so. So Cathy was, what can we do? And like I said, Buddy had said to her, do something for young people, keep my band working. Now that might be a heavy task, seeing that, of course. I mean, taking 18 guys out on the road, I don't even know if Van Halen has a crew that big. But if they do, we're not Van Halen. Okay. But I'm saying it was a matter of, we wanted to spice up the band with some kind of like a younger influence. And so what we did was we went into a recording studio and we had me play to 3 different Buddy tracks with Buddy's band and, Buddy's alumni guys. And we recorded to see how it sounded. And Cathy, I believe, put it on Facebook that we were going in the recording studio at probably noon. And by 5 o'clock that day, an agent had contacted Cathy and said, do you want to take the band on the road? I mean, so it was pretty much that cut and dry. It was an idea that Cathy and I, let's just have me record with the band. You know, basically what she did with, do you remember that Burning for Buddy CD collection that Cathy did for Atlantic Records with Neil Peart producing? Right. So, you had the drumming, you had Peter Erskine, you had Dave Weckl, you had the guys that you would quote unquote expect to have sitting in the drum chair playing. But then you also had Matt Sorum, you had Neil, you had Simon Phillips, who, great player, but he would be listed in the rock field, you know what I mean, as opposed to a real jazz drummer. I'm just saying those cuts on that record were they were different. And
let me ask you this. Let me ask you a quick question, Greg. Greg, let me jump here real quick. You keep saying the kids, Buddy want the kids. Let me ask you a question, and Cathy, both to you both. How's that for double meaning? Head count of the current band right now. How many of Buddy's players are in that band right now? I don't expect to have you get the exact number, but is there a handful of players there?
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is that we can go to New York and put a band together. We can go to LA and put a band together. We can go to London and put a band together, because there's so many alumni, that went through the band. So we have amazing players that come out and, play with us. We just spent 2 weeks in Europe and London, and it was amazing. I mean, everybody, was crying at the end of the run because it was musically, they said, the best experience they've ever had since Buddy. So that says something to me. And that we had, 14 or 16 sold out shows shows me that there is an audience for this. And it wasn't older people that showed up. It was young people. It was with their parents. It was with, it just shows us that what we're doing is exactly what he wanted me to do. Exactly.
And Gregg, I'm asking, and I asked this. I'm sorry, girls and boys. I'm asking this question because I've got this. I'm looking at a feed of questions from the listeners worldwide, but I'm going to shut them to the side because I want to know personally myself. I was going the pretense of the fact of using the word kids. Gregg, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
All of us jazz players, we're a little bit more touched than the normal musician, and I say that with tongue in cheek, and I'm serious at the same time. There's that little bit of prissiness in jazzers. Okay? So with that said, when Gregg walked up to the drum throne, and you've got these guys that are probably some of the guys could be your father's age that are up there playing.
Sure.
Are they looking at you with a furrowed brow and kind of saying, "Well, who is this punk? And can he actually cop Buddy's riffs?" Did you feel that at all?
Well, that was basically what I was saying to you when I say I get up there and play a tune with Bob Bowlby, who actually played with Buddy, or Chuck Finley, who played trumpet with these men. Right? Do they look at me like that? Yes, they'll say it right to my face. Who do you think you are? In a nice way. I mean, also, like I said, my attitude going into it is not that I'm going to come here and watch me do what Buddy did. I believe they pick up on the respect level that I have for the situation. But on the other hand, they also feel that also don't come to the game if you left your mitt at home. You know what I mean? That's kind of made up that analogy. But I'm saying I come there to play, and I have. And throughout the 5 years now that we've done it, I've played with quite a few alumni, and because I also have the internet too, and I read what people, what people write. And, like I said, you can go on the internet and find anybody that does anything amazing, and they might not necessarily be who you thought was doing it. That's really not.
Well, I think the interesting thing is that if, you show up and they don't know. I mean, at this point, everybody knows who Gregg is and that he's been doing this for a while now.
Okay, guys, real quick, I'm going to jump in here. I got to interrupt you because we got a clock plank. You see how fast these segments are going. Let's pick that up on segment number 2 because there's so many questions I want to ask. You being the punk of the group, if you would, for the lack of, and playing with the who's who of the Buddy Rich band. So when you guys come back on segment number 2 with Cathy Rich and Gregg Potter, you guys don't go anywhere, man. I've got so many questions. I'm intrigued. I just want to find out what Buddy would think of Gregg. So go ahead and ponder that thought for a second. So guys, Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network with Cathy Rich and Gregg Potter. Don't go anywhere. Segment 2 right around the corner.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on intertalkradio.com.
Hey, it's Carney Wilson, and you're listening to Jackie's Groove with Jackie Bertone.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertone.
That's music, my friends, and this is Jackie Bertone. Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network. Wow. Cathy Rich, Gregg Potter. Hey, you know what, man? That never gets old because, you know, me growing up, I'm 57 years old, and growing up in the Bertone household and my uncles and so on, there wasn't a day that I didn't walk into our house, my uncle's homes, and we weren't being blasted. Of course, as kids, we didn't want to hear all that big sound, but you couldn't walk into my family's homes without listening to Tommy Dorsey and Harry James and Count Basie and, you know, and Artie Shaw and so on. I mean, it would have been sacrilege, especially being the quintessential Italians. That's something that was always in the background. And when we left on the first segment, I had to ask Gregg a question. And Gregg, you mentioned the fact about all the bandmates that are still and the alumni that you're playing with, and you being considered the punk kid, you know, and filling Buddy's shoes. Can you only imagine, God, if I could just sit there and just, you know, revert time and to hear Buddy's sarcastic voice and what he would look at you and what he would say about you. What do you think Buddy would say about you, Gregg? Honestly.
Well, when I met him, I met him a couple times throughout my life, his life. The first time I met him, I was about 10 years old, and that didn't go very well. And then I met him the second time. I was probably 19 or 20, and that didn't go well either. He basically looked at me and said, "Nice hair, kid," and then just went on to another conversation with the person I was standing next to. So, but then again, I wasn't on the level of, I'm sure if they would have said, "Buddy, I think you better take an extra minute with this guy because he's going to be closer to your daughter than possibly her dentist." He probably would have said, "Hey, let me talk to him or something."
But I'd like to answer that question.
Why?
Go ahead.
I'm answering it now.
I know what he would have said, because if he had gotten to know Gregg, he would appreciate, the humor, because, again, we do this in the spirit of Buddy, with the energy of Buddy. Obviously, there will never, ever be another Buddy. So, you know, to even go into this thinking that, hey, you know, this is, you know, Buddy, that's not why we do this. We do this because he wanted the band to be working. That music, I mean, people actually cry when they see the band set up, when they hear the music again, and it's such an all-encompassing experience because you have me there, you've got Gregg there who's talking, and, you know, he does, you know, comes down and talks and is very funny. And, you know, I think my dad really would have appreciated exactly what he's doing and exactly what we're doing together, because it in no way is trying to recreate Buddy.
Well, you know, how does that possibly happen even to be even to think that you're going to recreate that? You can't recreate greatness. I mean, in other forms and such, but you know, you're talking about the School of Rich. I mean, that's, you know, that situation, you know, and I want to find out one thing, Cathy, too. Answer this question if you would, both of you. But first and foremost, Cathy, your dad's pet peeves. Can you share those with the listeners?
Wow. Personally and, musically, he ran his life in a very straight ahead way. He was very honest. He believed in creating music and bringing music to everyone. And he couldn't abide anything that was dishonest, false, or, fake in any way. So those, I think, would be his pet peeves as far as, how he ran his life and the band. We all know that, he had very little tolerance for somebody to come on the bandstand and not give 100%, because he was every night, no matter where they were. So I think that, his tolerance level was really low when it came to making excuses for yourself or, just not showing up and giving everything that you've got.
Think about it. I mean, your dad is the quintessential jazzer, but at the same time, too, excuse my French, but your dad was a fucking rock star. I mean, you think about it, the life.
Right. He was.
Exactly.
That's how we approach this thing.
Yeah, because, I was watching him on... Yeah, I was watching him on Carson, the Carson Classics, and they were getting ready to go to a commercial break, and Johnny had his quintessential pencil in his hand, and he was drumming away, because Johnny wasn't that bad of a drummer. I mean, it was a situation, to have the balls to sit next to your father and be tapping the pencil on the 16th note, right? And your dad looks right at Johnny's eyes, and Johnny stops playing, and he looks up at your dad, and he goes, "Is there a problem?" He's not too bad. He goes, "It's really not too bad." And your dad looked at Johnny, and he goes, "I've seen," he goes, "I've got a watch that keeps better time." And I thought, and that to me was the fact. And of course, when you said that, the audience didn't really, it's always a two beat. If it's got to do something with music and or a reference of drugs or drinking, the audience may not get it, but the always flashbacks go to the band. And of course, the band was hysterical, at that time also, and with that situation when, because your dad graced the Tonight Show more times than most major stars did. And when your dad did that, when he was a featured player, did Dad have a question or did Dad have a gripe at all if he had to sit in with Eddie's drums, or did he prefer to have his back line on front of the stage, or did he even make an importance of that at all?
No, it's funny because we talk about that a lot, is that, he would show up and whatever was there, he would play and make it sound amazing. So he had that ability. So he could play the lid of a trash can and it would sound amazing. So, Cathy, no, he was not that guy.
Yeah, and we talked about, Gregg, during the break, and how many friends that we have in common, drummer-wise, Weckel and Vinny and so on. And I'm blessed to have recorded with those people. But, I befriended one of the guys I think is just an amazing person. He's brought a lot of talent. He just brought me Steve Smith onto the show a couple weeks ago. He's a gentleman by the name of Rob Wallace. Rob is the president and CEO of Hudson Music, the greatest educational videos, DVDs, if you will, and also, a great music publisher. In fact, I told him you were going to be on the show, and he says, "Oh man," he goes, "You know what?" He goes, "I love that woman." He goes, "She's a great," and I said, "Well, instead of telling me how much you love her, why don't you just take a couple seconds? So do me a favor, Cathy, say hi to Rob. Rob, say hi to Cathy, please."
Roberto!
How you doing, Katrinka?
I'm good. I miss you. I got to see you for 10 minutes a month ago, and I didn't like it. It needs to be longer next time.
I hear you. Where are you guys still in England, or where are you?
No, we just got home on last Tuesday, but we're still jet lagged.
No, I mean, in terms of what's going on, it's such a shame what's going on in London and everything. So I'm glad. I thought about you as soon as it happened. I wasn't sure if you were still there.
No, and opening night at Ronnie Scott's was the Manchester thing, and I kept getting texts from everybody saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I didn't know what they were talking about. So, of course, I turned on the phone, and there it was. But luckily, it was far away. But England is going through some stuff right now, and we feel really bad for them.
Yeah, our hearts go out for sure.
Absolutely.
Hey, I have a question, Jackie. Yes. If you don't mind me jumping in and
take over, baby. Take over.
Jump in, Bobby.
What's that?
I said jump right in.
Okay, here's my question. So Jackie, Cathy, as you know, produced, I don't even know how many, tributes to her father.
Mm-hmm.
And, always had these just spectacular shows, historic extravaganzas, really. And I was fortunate enough to, film a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
For me, there's one show that kind of stands out for many reasons, kind of above all the rest. But I never had a chance to sit and ask Cathy, if there was a particular show that stood out in her mind as, as great as they all were, was there one that was sort of the greatest, the Muhammad Ali of these drum festivals and tributes.
Share with us, Cathy.
That's trying to pick your favorite child. I mean, it's each one of them was special to me. But I think you're referring to the '89 LA show, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I am. I mean, for some reason, that just, there was just something magical. And they all were. And I agree with you. It is like picking a child. And I was, feel the same way, the closeness to obviously to all the drummers and the musicians that played and everything else. But just that show seems to have, gone down in history as one of the greatest drumming shows sort of ever, which is pretty amazing.
Absolutely. And I think because it was the first, of its kind, and, we had the greatest of the great on that show that day, and, it's really never been duplicated as far as having those guys. We've talked about,
I lost you guys.
that. Oh, sorry. Are you there?
Are we there?
Are we there?
Paul,
we lost Rob.
Yep.
Bob, are we still there? We can get you back right. Okay,
yep.
There we
go.
go.
There was a lot of static. Yep.
Can you hear
Continue
me now?
on.
Yep, I'm good.
So I'm saying that I think that because it was the first one of its kind, and because we assembled, the greatest lineup, of that time, certainly, it will always stand out as being one of my favorite shows because it was the first one that we filmed. So,
I lost
and
you
all
guys
of those
again.
guys.
I'll try calling in.
Yeah, go ahead and hang up, and Paul will bring you back in.
Okay, all right.
I'll get notified. Cathy, while they're doing that, let me ask you this question, Cathy. Out of all the plethora of players out there that Buddy inspired, through his lifetime and continues to inspire, was there a favorite of your father? Is there a drummer that really would kick your dad's ass that your dad would talk about in the way of rock vein, or just an overall drummer? Did Dad have a favorite out there?
Well, he liked several people. I mean, he really liked Steve Gadd. He liked Danny Serafin. He loved Harvey Mason. There were a bunch, but he also said that he learned something from every drummer that he ever heard. So, him coming up when he was a kid, listening to Dave Tuff and Chick Webb and, all those people, I'm going to say that, all of those people influenced him. And then, when he was older, he was still learning. He said that he was always learning. So, the people that I just mentioned, were, I would say, of the younger crop in the 80s were his favorites. Steve Gadd and, Harvey Mason and those guys, he really enjoyed their playing.
Did the aforementioned players, did they know your dad's respect for them? Did they get to wear that as a Purple Heart, for the lack of a better word? Did they know that Buddy Rich was a fan?
I believe so. I know that there were several occasions where Danny and Buddy and myself were in the same room together, and my dad was very verbal about his feelings. If he loved you, and he would tell you. So yes, I'm sure Danny knew it. I know that Harvey knew it. I'm not sure that he and Gadd ever met. I'm not sure about that. Right. I'd have to ask Steve. Not sure.
Rob is back on. Rob, pick up the where we left off there. Rob, are you there, my brother?
Yep, I'm here. Yep.
Okay, so I want you guys pick it up where you left off regarding
Cathy,
this gig.
You were saying, Cathy, before I dropped out that that show was really one of the first of its kind. I guess on that level, right?
Sure. And I think that the people that we assembled at that time, were, I mean, that was pretty mind-blowing, you know, to have that lineup. We had Louis, we had Steve Gadd, we had Dave Weckl, Dennis Chambers, Vinnie Colaiuta. I mean,
sorry, guys,
Gregg
my phone, it just totally sorts out. I can't hear anything.
Robert.
Well, you know what, Rob,
now I'm back.
Well, let's try it next segment. We'll reboot on this side when we go to commercial break, because there's so much that you can add to the situation, you know. But stay on and listen to where we're going. I want to ask this question also too, and we'll get back to the conversation. But Cathy, let me ask you this question. I've heard this more times than not growing up in the industry itself. Was there a rivalry, good or bad, like the Paul McCartney, Brian Wilson situation between Louis and your father? Or was that all faux pas? Did your dad and Louis get along well, or was there that angst between the two of them that I've always read about?
No angst between the two of them at all. They were best friends, and Buddy absolutely adored Louis, and I believe Louis felt the same way about him. No, I mean, there was none of that. I would say if there was going to be a rivalry, it probably would have been between Buddy and Gene, because,
right.
You know, again, Gene was quite a bit older than my dad, and my dad was, you know, the up-and-coming, the, you know, whatever, and they were on a tour together at Jazz at the Philharmonic, where they would do this drum battle thing at the end.
Right.
And, you know, but Buddy, he's not going to hold back. He's going to do what he does. And I'm not sure that Gene, you know, handled it very well. But there you go.
You know, and speaking of your father in the contemporaries itself, when your father passed away in 87,
mm-hmm.
How was, and this sounds like maybe an open-ended question, but was Dad still a viable player? Was his health good? Was he still playing? And what did we lose Dad from? Educate the listeners out there that don't know how we lost Buddy.
Well, first of all, 4 months before he passed away, he was at Ronnie Scott's recording and in London, and we're just releasing. We're going to be releasing that on his birthday in September, and
right.
You be the judge of if he was still playing. I mean, the man was playing greater than you've ever heard him play. And, you know, so whatever was going on with him at the time certainly wasn't shadowing his playing at all.
Right.
I mean, the band was hotter. He was hotter than I've ever heard him play. And, you know, you'll be the judge when it comes out and you can listen to what was going on at that time. But,
you know what,
sadly...
I'm going to judge right now because there's that damn clock again. It's 44 seconds to go. And we get back. Okay. I'm going to pick up on that. And Gregg also, too, a lot of questions. And it's one of my questions also. Let's talk about the setup and your Ludwig drums and how much it mimics a replica, a mirror image of Buddy's. Was there a reason for that? Don't answer that now. But I want to find out if that was a prerequisite of Mrs. Rich right now, if that was her request. And because God knows, the hairstyles between you and I'm going to say it, your father-in-law, but Buddy couldn't be more polar opposites, and I love that. So with that said, guys, don't go anywhere. This is Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network, into all things music. Coming out of segment number 2 into segment number 3. You see how fast this goes, guys? And there's a million questions, so don't go anywhere. Stick around. Segment 3 right around the corner with Cathy Rich and Gregg Cotter. Don't go anywhere, kids.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion, which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on intertalkradio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Shelly Sondheim, President CEO of CSM Words and Music. You're listening to Jackie's Groove with Jackie Bertone.
Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertone.
Everybody, welcome back to segment number 3 of Jackie's Groove. Guys, this is Jackie Bertone, and we're brought to you by the Intertalk Radio Network. A little bit of business if I can get out of the way. If you guys can't listen to our show live, I've said this over and over in all of my segments, but do yourselves a favor and us a favor. Go on to iTunes or Google Play and download our easy-to-use and navigate application. First word is Intertalk. Second is radio. You can take Jackie's Groove and the plethora of shows we have on the road with you, so you never miss a thing. Hey guys, welcome back. Gregg, when we went to the last the break, I had to ask you this question, and I'm also going to follow up with part 2 of the question. When I look at all of your still photos of you behind the bandstand with the Buddy Rich Orchestra, was it a prerequisite or was it a requirement? At least the pictures I've seen, that you are playing a Ludwig trap set. But with that Ludwig trap set, it's pretty much of a mirror image of what Buddy played. Is there a reason for that?
So when you're looking at all those still shots of me playing or videos, at no point did you mention my hair? The hair
I had to.
Got to you?
I love it, brother. Okay. I pay attention to your playing, brother. That's the main thing.
All right. Okay. I just wanted to, just in case, because I believe questions before, like, what would Buddy think of Gregg? Yes, you're right. He would not like my hair. I understand. But the drums, no, that was not a prerequisite of Cathy's. Like, it was always when we started to, like you were asking earlier about, like, how did this gig come to you, or whenever we thought about doing this, like when you see the band setup. Right. I also think about things of what would it be like if I were coming to see the band? What would I like to see? Because as much as I love all those other drummers that you have spoken about, and I love the Buddy Rich Memorial concert that Cathy did, and it always seemed to me when you would get there and you would see maybe Terry Bozzio set up with the Terry Bozzio kit, yet he's playing the Buddy music, or it felt like it just didn't seem right. I thought that I always thought that you should play like a Buddy looking kit. Not that we're like a Kiss tribute band or a Beatles tribute band, where the men dress up and, oh, look at that, that's Ringo, that's Paul. It's not that we're doing that. I don't have the Nehru jacket, and I don't have although I do wear a necklace every once in a while, but I'm saying we're not trying to mimic it. But when you do look at Buddy's kit, it really isn't far off from a John Bonham kit. And it's really not far off from there is one thing about Buddy and his kit and his playing. The guy was so ahead of his time that his drums have not gone out of style yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like when you watch an old Babe Ruth baseball film and it's like, well, of course you wouldn't wear a suit like that, or you wouldn't swing the bat like that. I mean, Buddy's stuff is still right there. I mean, he's using a 24. I mean, not to get drum geek on you, but if we are,
Please
it's a 24-inch bass. Oh, okay. Well, it's a 24 by 14-inch kick drum. I mean, Bonham played a 26 by 14 kick drum. So I mean, he's got a big bass drum. Rack tom is a 9 by 13, so 13-inch. He does. I do have the two 16-inch floor toms like Buddy, and yes, Ludwig did actually replicate what Buddy used in 1980 for me on my request, not Cathy's request.
Sure.
Yes.
You mentioned got this damn delay. I'm going to jump in real quick. Talking about drum geeks, we got the drum geek back on, Rob. Hello, Rob. I called you a drum geek, but I mean that out of absolute respect to you, Mr. Wallace. And I'm going to. You asked me a second ago, Gregg, about I didn't mention the hair. There's a reason why I didn't mention your hair, and I'm going to tell you why. I've lost mine. The CEO of the network, Florentino, has lost his. Paul, the COO, and my engineer, the bastard, still has a full head of hair, and so do you. So if I'm not talking about hair, it's not out
I'm
of
at 85%. I'm getting there.
Yeah, all right, but the bottom line is, we don't. I don't.
He's got all his hair off now.
Exactly.
I'm sorry I brought it up. I just thought I would nip it in the bud. So when we do actually read about it on the internet, not that I sit and read those things, but Cathy and I do have a lot of time on our hands. Sometimes, like after 2 a.m, you will maybe read something, and I just thought I would mention it just in case people were, would maybe mention saying, "My God, Buddy would never do a lot of things, but as long as Cathy's mom likes me." And Buddy's, what other relatives?
All of my relatives.
All the relatives like me. So I'm saying as long as we've got that, I'm going to say whatever I'm doing or wherever I'm at with the hair, the clothing, my choice of Nutville instead of Time Check, whatever that is, as long as Cathy's mom likes me, Cathy likes me, Cathy's mom, and like I said, these other relatives, that would be Buddy's
cousin,
yeah, like
my
Buddy,
son.
Yeah, Buddy, yeah, of course, Cathy's Nick, Cathy's son. I'm just saying that our attitude is where it should be. But you were asking me about drums, right? Do you want me to finish talking about my drum geeking out, my Ludwig kit?
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you a question also too, and Rob, he's on the other line too. I have to ask this question because I'm a hand drummer, I'm a percussionist. When it comes to traps, I don't get involved, even though I've been blessed to play with the who's who. My question to you is, when you're up on the stage and Ludwig basically replicated Buddy's sound, with the sound and the way the drums were back then versus the way they are today, how are you? Do you tune your traps? Let's not say that you're playing on a separate gig, not the Buddy Rich Orchestra. Are you detuning? Are you using a fatter snare to replicate that sound or the sound that the big band requires on drums? Share with us.
Realistically, I'm not like going. I'm playing the equipment that Buddy played. Maybe it was I was hoping that like through osmosis or something that Well, wait a second. If I got a replicated snare drum, it would be. No, I'm not really switching. I'm playing it because, again, I think it all also comes back to the respect I have for it. This is what the man used to play this stuff. If you need, yes, I do use a double pedal, whereas my God, Buddy never played double bass. I mean, he can play it, and there is a video of him playing it when he broke his arm, or not a video, a recording of it. But I'm saying I do use a double pedal.
Someone else is using a double pedal now that didn't before. Who just played with us in London.
Well, once he saw what could be done with it, he said, you know what?
It's really funny. Dave Weckl never used a double pedal until Gregg started using the double pedal.
He also got a haircut, and he had Yamaha.
Really?
And he also had Yamaha build him a white Buddy kit.
With the shield and everything.
With the shield on the kick drum and everything. So, yeah, we even influenced the great Dave Weckl. But that's okay, because we love him. We love him, and he's nothing but a wonderful guy, and he certainly does play nice. But getting back to my drum set, and no, I'm using basically all the way down to the cymbals. Now I know Buddy was a complete Zildjian guy. I'm a complete Sabian guy. So is Dave Weckl. So what Sabian did, the wonderful people at Sabian, Chris Sankey. They replicate Andy Zildjian. They replicated all the sizes and weights. Buddy has an extra thin on the left, 18-inch extra thin on the left side, medium thin on the right, two 18-inch crashes up front, 20-inch ride, 14-inch hats, 8-inch splash, and a 20 China. And what they did was replicated what the weights and sizes were. So my cymbals are, but I don't care. You could have everything down to playing them with Buddy's sticks. They just don't sound like Buddy. There is something about the way that man could sit down behind this, basically a John Bonham rock drum set, and play with such finesse, such. So I don't know. I mean, because you also, like you were just talking about the Johnny Carson show. Do you see some of the drum sets that man has sat down behind? I mean, you couldn't even play those if you wanted to, and you could hear how the toms were sometimes cranked up way too high. When he played Eddie Shaughnessy's drums, he had the total television drums that sounded like they put pillows in each drum because, for television. And, I mean, but you could hear Buddy working those things. Same deal with the cymbals it sounded like a muted cymbal compared to, wait until you hear these new recordings that, have just the recordings that they're going to do from Ronnie Scott's, or listen to that Birdland album, the last album that just came out. That was just, or last CD that was released. That was released on an album too, like last year. Listen to Buddy's drums, how bright they were. His crashes, they were just nuts. I mean, so getting back to my gear is all the same sizes, but there's something about also the way that man played the equipment. But my drums, are a replica of what Buddy used in 1980s, along with actually the music stands on stage made by the Humes and Bird Company, same stands Buddy used.
Yes.
I love that.
And there was some method behind that. We wanted people to walk in to whatever, if it's a concert hall or a nightclub or a theater, whatever. When you walk in, you wanted people to have that, oh my gosh, factor.
That's what it looked
because
like.
It looks exactly like it looked when you were coming to see Buddy. And I can't tell you how many people actually have tears in their eyes when they walk in and they see it and they go insane. It's like walking in and Buddy's going to come out and play.
Yeah, and Greg, they have tears in their eyes because they realize I'm playing. And
Greg, let me ask you a question. And Cathy, your dad, again, educate me if you would and my listeners. On the kick drum, facing the audience, was the BR crest and the 2-line stripes, was that something your dad responsible for that? 'Cause so many people have copied that.
No.
Gene
Krupa had it. Krupa had it before Buddy.
Okay, cool.
And I don't know if anybody had it before, but I know that Gene had it before.
Hey, and on the phone, Rob, are you still there, brother boy?
Yep, I'm here.
Hey, Rob, let me ask you this question.
I'm listening.
How much of a relationship?
Listening intently.
Perfect. How much of a relationship did you have with Buddy?
What's that? Say it again.
Did you have a relationship with Buddy?
No, unfortunately, no. Other than going to see him play a couple of times live, I never spent any time with him. We almost did. We were trying to do an instructional video, and but it just never seemed to line up the right way, and other people got involved. So
I know.
Sort of never got there.
Rob had to have a relationship with me instead. So for 30 years, Rob and I have been friends. So that's worth something.
Oh, No, we've done some amazing. One of my all-time favorite things that I've ever done out of the couple of hundred titles or whatever was the Buddy. We did a full-blown biography on Buddy. Called Jazz Legend, and I just think it's such a really really good piece of work. It's probably, I don't own that title anymore. It was part of a catalog that I had sold, but it's probably up all over the internet because the people that own it never policed it. But it's called Buddy Rich Jazz Legend, and it's really really special for anybody that wants to get a real short dose of Buddy and really his influence. And Cathy's in it, and there's a lot of great, playing and a lot of great clips and photos and stuff. It's really good.
It is a lot of people talk about that too. How much they love that. Too.
With the advent of technology and everything else, and I'm not being sarcastic with this. I think it would be kind of probably something to be very very cool when you look at situations like holograms, like Tupac and holograms of Michael Jackson. Could you imagine how cool it would be to do a hologram on Buddy Rich?
Already in the works.
Oh, there you go. You and I did not talk about this. Can you talk about it right now at all? Can you give a teaser at all?
Well, we're in the process of also doing a motion picture on Buddy's life. So by the end of 2017, we should be pretty much up and running, going into pre-production. But right now we're working with writers and all of that. But I had been talking about, probably for the past several years, about hologram technology and doing something, doing a major concert event and having Buddy actually come out at the end. So yes, that will happen. Yeah,
I've got goosebumps thinking about it. You think about this, and I'm going to go right back to Gregg because, and you being, right. Gregg, how old are you now? May I ask?
How old are you, Gregg?
Yeah, I really don't speak about my age, but believe me, I'm old enough to have had shingles 3 times.
There you go.
I did. Well,
Well, my only correlation of asking that question is that when I started working with Brian Wilson, when his departure from the Beach Boys, that shows how old I am, and I got a phone call once. We were in the middle of this recording of Brian Wilson's Imagination, a critically acclaimed album. And when I got a phone call in the studio, and I was at Ocean Way, which was Western Audio, I'm sure you remember that, Kath. And
sure.
And so I get a phone call, and someone says, "Jackie, in the office, there's a phone call." So I get out of the room, and I go in there, and it's Mr. Hal Blaine on the phone. Now, and so I'd never met Hal, but of course, for the young listeners out there, Hal Blaine and Carol Kay, better known as the Wrecking Crew, who have been responsible for the songs behind the hits. And so Hal said to me, "Hey, I want to congratulate you working with Brian. I understand you're doing a great job. And I just kind of wanted to let you guys know that you are the new Wrecking Crew." And I just remember I said to him, Mr. Blaine, he goes, "Don't call me Mr. Blaine again." I said, "Well, Hal, we could never be considered the new Wrecking Crew. There will, once it's been put down there, we can never duplicate." And that's the reason why I brought that up to you, Gregg, is that the fact of the matter is, even though you are filling the shoes or trying to of Buddy Rich, you will never be Buddy Rich. And I'm sure you're okay with that. And the fact of the matter is, that's where my parallel to you on that is the fact that, I'm not walking in on the drum set, walking on percussion, but to learn those, the Studio 101, working with the greats like that. And I want to talk to you more about that, Gregg, when we come back on segment number 4. And Rob, don't go anywhere, because I just want to know the inner mechanics of the filmings and so on and so forth, and why you couldn't get it locked in with Buddy. That's a freaking shame. So with that said, we're going to field some more questions, guys. Don't go anywhere. I'm ear to ear smiles right now. I feel like I'm actually a drummer hanging out with these great drummers. So with that said, guys, don't go anywhere. Keep those questions coming in. I'm proud and I'm privileged to be interviewing a beautiful, beautiful woman by the name of Cathy Rich, the daughter of Buddy Rich, and some guy named Gregg Potter, the one who's trying to fill the shoes of Mr. Buddy Rich, and also the drum geek, the drum guru at Mr. Rob Wallace. So you guys don't go anywhere. Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove, brought to you by the infamous Intertalk Radio Network. You're into all things music, and also I'm a proud Sabian endorser myself, Gregg, for the past 23 years. So you're preaching to the choir, my brother. So you guys don't go anywhere. We'll right back after this short break.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al DiMeola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time, or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Al Di Meola, and you're listening to Jackie's Groove with Jackie Bertoni.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
My friend, that's what having 2 espressos at 3 o'clock in the morning will do to you. Those manic sticks right there are brought to you by in-studio guest, Mr. Gregg Potter, and Buddy Rich's beautiful daughter, Cathy Rich. Guys, welcome back, and also Rob Wallace. Hey, we're talking off the air right now, as we normally do, and it's so funny when you sit there and you talk about people that we know of in common, and I was talking about where I was calling, looking at Cathy's 702 area code, and I won't get the number out there, thinking that it was Las Vegas, but they're in Chicago, and I just told her that I do a lot of recording out in Chicago. That's where Brian Wilson's home was in St. Charles, and always staying at the haunted hotel, which is called, Hotel Baker. And but the great thing is, and you mentioned Joe Thomas, and so on, a great producer, and who's now with BMG and also runs a great show on PBS called Soundstage. So with that said, with Brian's home, Gregg, did you ever get a chance to record at Brian's home?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did record. Are we going to say his name out loud, or will we get sued?
Yeah. Please say it.
Oh, I recorded there with Steve Dahl. And I don't know that it was necessarily a stage radiation deal. I believe it was back with Steve Dahl and the Dolphins.
Absolutely. And I had that experience. A lot of people don't know that Steve Dahl is actually the quintessential, the real, and the first shock jock before Howard Stern, and controversial, for the lack of a better word, on a station called The Loop out of Chicago. In fact, for those who don't know Steve Dahl, it's spelled Dahl, and Steve was the one responsible for burning all of the disco albums and records, over at the stadium. Do you remember that? Do you guys remember like it was yesterday? I'm the only old guy out there that remembers that.
I remember it, but that was like all before the band Teenage Radiation and all that came after that. That happened in the summer of '79, and it was a Chicago White Sox baseball game at the old Comiskey Park. And so when Dahl, at that time, Dahl was he would be doing "Do You Think I'm Disco," which was just a backing track. Back in the disc jockey magic, they were able to take the lyrics out of he was just playing along to a track, the actual Rod Stewart track. So it was after that he then put together an official band, which became Teenage Radiation, and then we recorded many songs after that. But yeah, that's actually where my career, right out of high school, I got my I got my start. So that would pretty much start figuring out. You get out your calculators, you can start figuring out how old I am. If I was, you know.
And it's so great because now that I know you're a Chicago boy, you know, you can't fake a Midwest accent there. You know, when you say, when I get in town and say, Jackie, don't worry about it, downstairs at O'Hare, you have the car waiting for you to pick you up, you know. And speaking of Chicago greats, a mutual friend of Rob and myself, are you friends at all with Todd Zuckerman?
Oh, of course. I wanted that Styx gig too, you know.
Yeah, who didn't?
But unfortunately, Dennis DeYoung basically said, I'll never have someone playing drums in my band that ever worked for Steve Dahl. Because I don't know if you ever remember what Steve Dahl used to do to poor Dennis DeYoung on the air back when Dennis DeYoung really did rule the airwaves. He was just merciless on the guy. He used to say that he looked like a waiter from Shakey's Pizza.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was like, Dahl was just brutal. Because, I mean, it was, but yeah, we know Todd, and I've known Todd like since he used to win the Guitar Center drum contest here in Chicago. So yes, he's a wonderful player, and but yes, so out of Chicago drummers, Todd would be one of them that found his way. All right.
And Rob, let me ask you this question. Going back to what we talked to on the break, and actually can't believe we're already in segment number 4. Rob, what was a snafu that you didn't get the opportunity of all the greatest players that you've recorded, you filmed? What was the holdup of Buddy? Could you not get to Buddy in his realm? Share with us.
It's kind of probably a long story, but Cathy and I have a very deceased, very dear mutual friend named, guess who, Cathy? Freddie Gruber. And, you know, one day, it was in like the mid-'80s, you know, I didn't know who Freddie was, and he showed up in our office and introduced himself, and it started a really lengthy friendship. You know, I mean, he was like a family member. He called me on Sunday nights. My wife was the other day was just joking that she misses the Sunday night calls because it was the anniversary of Freddie's passing. So I said to her, "Oh, it's Freddie." You know, he used to call every night, like every Sunday night at 10:30 East Coast time. And for whatever reasons, he got kind of involved in trying to connect us with Buddy, but I think in some ways he unconnected us more.
Therein lies the problem. I think if Freddie hadn't been involved, he probably would have gotten Buddy.
Yeah, it would have been, you know, unbelievable. So it's a shame. It really, you know, for the you know, sort of the just to have that stuff recorded and hear Buddy really talking, you know, in detail about his technique, which he didn't really, I don't think, did a lot, or certainly not when it was recorded. So it was unfortunately a really missed opportunity. It would have been a wonderful piece of history to keep. But,
yeah, no doubt.
You know, I didn't hear the earlier segments. I've been running about, but since I tuned in, you just did mention a little bit of Carson, and I just want to reiterate, if it hasn't been, that, you know, I think those Carson shows were so influential to, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of drummers that, you know, would just kind of tune in. I mean, now it's easy with YouTube. You can go back and find a lot of those clips. But in those days, it was like it was kind of a religious thing. You know, when TV Guide you'd look at TV Guide and see when Buddy was going to be on Carson, and you were just in front of the TV set that night, you know, period. And it was amazing. It was, you know, that whole relationship between Buddy, Ed Shaughnessy, and Louie, I would say. Anytime those guys were involved, just unbelievable things would happen. I remember a night when, you know, I think Shaughnessy was out sick and Louie ended up coming into sub for the night, and then Buddy came in, you know, just unbelievable, historic level, you know, performances. Those guys inspired each other. I think it really kind of kicked each other up an extra notch that night if they were, you know, a little tired, or it had been a long month, but when they'd see each other and knew they were going to be playing together, you know, definitely something happened. And those were amazing.
You know, and it's like, you know, my only correlation with that whole situation with the Carson, you know, having friends that worked on the show for years and having the ability to sit there in between. If you ever been to NBC when Johnny was on the air, there were these tunnels that used to would come in between two sections of the audience, and we would always have the chance to sit there. And the oldies, and of course, people who don't know the TV industry, NBC uses what is called a wide lens. So what you're looking at on stage, on television, the stage live is about half the size it is in person. And so when Eddie would play, I was always amazed not only of how huge his trap set was for TV, but Eddie had the only, Ed Shaughnessy was the only one that had the balls enough to wear those huge pendants. Remember that pendant that he made so famous? And that was that cool situation. But to be in that situation and being toured around with, with the DeCordofa family, who were the producers at that time and directors on that show. But I would sit there and I would always want to find out what shit, and I mean that in a good sense, that Johnny would give to Buddy and Buddy would give back to Johnny, because they were like two brothers on there. That's what I meant by the fact is that your dad was just a drummer. Your dad was a superstar. I mean, he was always on those sets with Sinatra and so on. When you came downstairs or whatever it was not even a second guess the fact that your dad, you'd open the door and it'd be Frank Sinatra. How close was your father and Frank? How much carousing did those two do together? Or if you want to share that at all with the listeners.
Sure. I mean, they were on the Tommy Dorsey band together, and at that point, both probably in their early 20s, and Buddy had been there for a while already when Frank came on the band, and obviously, Frank took the world by storm, and Buddy was the star of the band before Frank came on. So talk about a rivalry at that point. Then they were roommates, and that didn't work out at all. They were constantly, Buddy would torment him when Frank would come on to sing a ballad. Buddy would play really loud, or he'd play a marching beat. I mean, you can imagine two kids at the top of their game, vying to be the star of what at that point was, the biggest band in the world. So after that died down, and Frank left the band and Buddy went on, Frank actually wrote a check for $50,000 in those days for my dad to start his own band. Wow. And then they were best friends from then on out. I mean, they were friends till the end of their lives.
And I want to share something also. This is last year. We were in a beautiful city called Las Vegas, Nevada, and I was sitting there with our family, and we were in a cabana, which I can't stand to do, but we had to play the game, and I'm over at it was the somewhere at the Aria or the Mandarin Oriental. That's what it was. Boy, what a PC and correct name that is. But the fact is, we're up there, and I'm talking to my cousin Steve Barilli from the Bronx, and Steve is a Buddy Rich freak, beyond freak. And my brother-in-law Gregg and I were sitting there, and I was just talking the fact I just got off the phone with David Garibaldi, and by the way, David's doing very, very well. Gregg, he will be back on the throne with Tower Power. I can't tell you when, but it's right around the corner. So that's a great thing. But the fight and the argument that we got into, my cousin Steve had some Hennessy in his system, and he proceeded to tell us that nobody could play funk like Buddy Rich. And I said, well, no one's going to take anything away from Buddy Rich, but I don't think Buddy Rich was really considered a funk player. And the fact is, but again, you don't know my cousin Steve. It was a flat out fight, and I don't mean physically, but the fact is, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're a percussionist, don't talk about Buddy that way. There's nobody can play funk and stay in the pocket like Buddy, and so on. So with that said, I know my cousin Steve's listening in, so with that said, I want to hear it from the horse's mouth, for the lack of a better term, from Cathy. Would you consider and Rob jump in and Gregg jump in? Am I out of line by saying Buddy was not a funk player? Stop me if I'm out of line.
Hi, cousin Steve. But no, I would say that Buddy could play anything, obviously.
Right.
And he also believed that if you were a drummer, you weren't, categorized as, I'm a funk drummer, I'm a rock drummer, I'm a country drummer, I'm a jazz drummer. You played everything. Right. And obviously, if there were funk tunes in the band, he played funk. But was he known as a funk drummer? I would have to say no. Okay.
Gregg?
But realistically, wouldn't you dig seeing Buddy Rich playing Tower of Power? You go like, I'd like to see that, just to hear his snare drum fills.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine what Squid Cakes would sound like? Just the opening alone, if Buddy was playing that. I mean, because I know your dad was not a big fan of the double kick. Is there a reason why he wasn't a fan of the double kick? You want to expand on that at all?
It looks like he wasn't even a fan of the double floor tom, because he left his towel on that second floor tom half the time.
Right.
Really like the small. Let Cathy answer that.
I don't really know the answer definitively, but I'm going to say he thought that and he wasn't a fan of double bass drums. He thought that was kind of ridiculous because, what do you need to do that for? If you can't do it with one, don't do it. That was his philosophy. And let me say before I go on, when you asked me about drummers that Buddy loved, David Garibaldi was absolutely on that list. And I left him out because I didn't remember, but he was a huge fan of Tower of Power.
Greg, what about you, Greg? Were you a TOP fan at all, Greg?
Yes. I mean, David's playing is, again, there are great players. I mean, you want to say in every genre or something, but someone like what Garibaldi does with that band, it's like when you go back to what Ringo did in the Beatles. Yes, I was a big Dino Danelli fan from the Rascals, but if you put Dino Danelli in the Beatles, it wouldn't have been the Beatles. And, David in Tower of Power, I mean, that man he's magical, you know what I mean? And then, like, for these, in any genre of music, but it just seems that the Buddy Rich thing transcends all of that. Because you say, like, the greatest jazz drummer. It seems Buddy's like the greatest drummer. I mean, because we talk to people, I mean, Cathy has talked to people her whole life, but say in these last 6 years of me being around, like, the band and being around something like the Bonzo Bash. I think 2 years ago, not last year, it's been the year before, but Bill Ward from Black Sabbath was there. Wow. And we're backstage, and they see someone with him sees Cathy and said, "Bill would like to meet you." And now Cathy's like, "Well, okay, whatever," thinking it was just going to be that standard, "Hey, how you doing?" thing. The guy starts going on and on because I guess Bonham and Bill Ward grew up together, say in the what were they in the whatever years it would be, but. Right. That they would actually sit, because back in the day you didn't have videos or YouTube or something, so you would get this Buddy Rich album, whichever album had come out, Big Swing Face or whatever album was out at the time, and you'd put that thing on, and he said he and Bonham would sit like with snare drums in a room and try to play it. Now these are the two biggest rock. I mean, they invented it. They invented rock drumming between John Bonham and Bill Ward with Black Sabbath, and Bonham with Zeppelin. Really, what hasn't been done? You know what I mean? So, yet they still, their influence were majorly, their snare drum. They all tried to get their snare drum techniques out of Buddy and stuff. And to me, that seems to be, out of any other drummer, you don't really hear him say that. I mean, people love Max Roach, Elvin Jones, right. Some of these other, the jazz masters. But it seems that no one brings it the way Buddy did. And then, when we were just in London 5 years ago with Ian Pace, same thing. Ian Pace talks about Buddy as an influence, and these are men that, like, basically invented that rock classic, the classic rock drumming that Neil Peart came after them.
Greg, I'm going to interrupt you right now, brother. I'm sorry, we're going out. See how fast this is moving. Guys, coming out of segment number 4 into 5 out of a 2-hour interview. Guys, don't go anywhere. There's so much more to talk about. Please welcome back Miss Cathy Rich, or Mrs. Cathy Rich, and also Mr. Greg Potter. You guys, when we get back, I'm looking at all these notes. I bit my tongue a little while ago, and I'm high on coffee. So, you guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on segment number 5. So much more to talk about. We're going to pick it up right after.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on intertalkradio.com.
Hey, it's Carney Wilson, and you're listening to Jackie's Groove with Jackie Bertone.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertone.
Everybody, welcome back to Jackie's Groove, better known as Birdland Central. Hey, Jackie's Groove, Jackie Bertone, brought to you by Intertalk Radio Network. You're into all things music. Hey, you know what? I want to say welcome back to Cathy Rich and to Gregg Potter. Hey, but we got a dear friend of ours on the line right now that's got to bounce here, but we want to kind of just say goodbye to him. But he's got a couple things he wants to bring to the forefront. Rob, pick it up from this if you would be so kind.
Sure. Gregg was just talking about how, Buddy's influence reached out even to guys like, John Bonham and Billy Ward. I was fortunate enough to, I think we did it in 1993. Cathy and Neil Peart decided to produce a record, which we then added video to, called the tribute, Burning for Buddy, which was a tribute to Buddy's music, and had, I think it was 17 drummers.
22.
It was an unbelievable experience, right, Cathy?
Yes, it was 22 drummers over 2 weeks, and
22.
I think by the end we never wanted to hear drums again.
We went into the power station in New York, and we go in the morning, and it would be literally at 7 days a week. We probably worked, 12 hours a day, and it was just amazing. Joe Morello, Gadd, unbelievable collection of players: Simon Phillips, Steve Smith, Dave Weckl, Neil, Kenny Aronoff, Aunt David Garibaldi. It was just on and on and on. An amazing, amazing thing to have witnessed. I just got to be a fly on the wall, really.
You got to film everybody after talking about it.
Hey, and Rob, let me ask you a question. I'm sorry, there's that delay again. Rob, let me ask you a quick question. If Buddy was alive today, what would you want to say to him?
Just thank you. I would say that he and Gene Krupa really elevated the position of drummer. I think Gene really put a kind of a show aspect to the whole drumming, phenomenon that was happening back then. He put a spotlight, on himself. He had lights in his bass drum, and he was, very show oriented. And I think Buddy then kind of took what Gene was doing, and raised it to a more, challenging level, musically, physically. He really was kind of in some senses a freak of nature, the way he could play and the way his hands worked and his coordination and the speed that he could play with. from what I understand, with very little practice. I mean, you kind of put all that together, and you got to say, he was a genius. But I would say that I would just want to thank him for doing what he did. He always presented drummers in a great light, very distinguished. Louis Bellson too was another one. Always a distinguished man that just was, kind of paved the way for the rest of us.
And you know what, and Rob, I just want to take a second, Rob, also, and thank you, brother, very much. I love the fact that you take the time and you come on my show. And again, we have so many friends of ours in common, but you and I have not hugged each other, shook each other's hands. So we'll make sure that we do that this coming January at NAMM 2018. We're going to spend some great times together. Again, as I said, the Drummers Roundtable, that's going to be coming up. We'll give you more information. Florentino and Paul will educate you more on that and of the big things coming up for NAMM. So with that said, I know you got to go. So everybody, do me a favor, patronize Mr. Rob Wallace. Go on to hudsonmusic.com and also the Drum Guru app. This man needs money, and if we're out there, we gotta help this man out, And so with that said, Brother Rob, I love you, man. Thank you so much, and we've got so much more coming up between you and I and our other friends in the industry. No spoiler alerts, but we'll announce it on social media when we can share that. So, Cathy and Gregg, say goodbye to Rob. Rob,
I love you guys too, all of you. So take care. Thanks, Jackie, for inviting me in today, and Cathy and Gregg. Looking forward to seeing you guys soon.
See you soon.
Thank you, brother.
See you soon.
Safe travels, everybody.
Yeah, likewise.
How about you?
Hey, Cathy, let me ask you this question, girl.
Yeah.
When your dad would walk out on stage, I'm not just talking about walking on stage with his home stage, his big band, but when he would do, I'm going to keep going back to Carson because I grew up on that. There'll never be a king of late night radio. What am I saying radio for? Late night TV. There'll never be another Johnny Carson. I don't care what anybody says out there. But with that said, when your dad would walk out, when Johnny would sit there and say, Buddy Rich, and the band would play this huge fanfare, and your dad would come, strolling out on stage. He had that quintessential, I am just too cool for shoes. He'd look at the audience, look at the band, point his fingers at him, and so on. But he would do that, and automatically he would go on to the Buddy Rich vibe. My question for you, this is my own personal question, was Dad bigger than life when he was at home?
Of course not, because he was just dad at home.
Okay.
I mean, he was dealing with things that husbands and dads deal with, every day. Granted, he didn't do it as often as, stay-at-home dads and dads that work a 9-to-5 job. But no, I mean, he was the guy who, took me to events, and he was the guy who we strolled around the streets and, went out to dinner and went to baseball games, and, he was a regular guy. He wasn't the cocktail party guy. He wasn't the showbiz guy. He was, when he was off from work, he was just dad at home. That was it.
Okay. When you guys were out and about, and and doing, being the family and going out to dinner and so on and so forth, how did your dad handle fans that would walk up to him? Was he there to protect the family, or was he gracious?
Always gracious. I mean, appreciated everybody that came up to him, shook everyone's hand, signed anything that anybody wanted. I mean, when we lived in New York, in the city, I mean, literally people would be hanging, from scaffolds, cleaning windows, 20 stories up and screaming down at him. So it was pretty crazy at times. And, yes, we would go places and crowds would kind of gather, and he'd graciously, do what he could and then, kind of make his way out. But always took the time to say hello to anybody.
And let's step back 30 years and let's bring Buddy back to today's drumming world. I know this is really putting like the crystal ball here, but I have to ask the question itself. What did your father, Gregg, what did Buddy feel about drum machines?
Oh, God. Not happy at all about that. Anything that put real musicians out of work,
out of business,
or
right,
took the emotion and the feel and the musicality out of what anyone was doing was not something he would ever be interested in.
But then again, you guys do remember the Buddy Rich commercial for Mattel's Synsonic drums.
That wasn't a drum machine. It was a different kind of sound.
It wasn't a form of drum machine?
Not really. Not something that he would use of a
I agree with Cathy.
Cathy and I settled this one out because I also saw the beer commercial and Buddy never drank beer.
That is true.
Things happen.
Okay, so he was
going to have Buddy.
He was a sellout. Why not? Let's go ahead and say it now. He's not around to protect himself. Come on, guys. Let's give him a break.
They're going to write him a big check. He's going to do it.
Exactly.
There you go.
Have you seen the way Marie shops? She still shops like that today. We played gigs in Portland, Oregon to pay for Cathy's mom to shop. We don't mind. It's awesome. But I'm poor buddy.
Greg and Cathy, think about it. The old adage was, a drum machine, there had to be a drummer to program. Well, then, God damn it, if there was a drummer to program it, then fucking play the drums. You don't need to push the fingers.
Exactly.
I just never understood that.
No, I don't understand anything that takes away from the humanity of being a musician. I mean, that's the whole point of it. Why would you try to get a machine to do what a man can do? It's crazy.
Yeah, but there's also those drummers that say, I've got a 20-inch bass drum that sounds just like a 26.
Well, then get a
26-inch bass drum, and it'll sound just like a 26-inch bass drum.
Right. None of that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Well, let's stay with one more question for Buddy itself. What did Buddy think of the click track?
You're going to get the same answer about the drum machine for a click track.
There you go. I got to hear it.
Buddy was the click track. That man's time was impeccable. There was nothing that you could, that you could put in front of him or have him play that wasn't always going to be perfect. So that's pretty much it. He didn't like it. He thought, it takes away from the humanity of what you're doing, the emotion. If you're constantly listening to a click in your head, and granted, there are people, you do a commercial spot or you're doing, something in a studio that has to be a certain way. I mean, I understand that, but I'm not sure that, he would have agreed with any of that click track stuff. No.
And it's such a great dichotomy because I asked the drummers of new and old, case in point, the situation with JR. JR, I quote JR when he said that he would marry the drum click if he had the chance, and so on. When I record, producers know that they send me the tracks without a click track. I hate the click track. The bottom line is, I learned timing from the best, Garibaldi. David taught me the right and left independence. And with that said, so I'm going to jump back to the two of you. Let's step off Buddy for a second because you can't correlate one with the other. But let me ask Cathy, let me ask Gregg this real quick. Cathy, drummers that inspired you then and now, what drummers do really kicks your booty?
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Well, way back, I mean, obviously, I was a huge Beatle fan. Still am to this day. So, Ringo would have been I was a tiny little kid, maybe 5 years old when the Beatles came out. So, that was my first glimpse into rock was watching Ringo play. And so that would have been my first, major love of a drummer would have been Ringo. And then as I grew older, as I grew up, obviously I was a huge Led Zeppelin fan and still am to this day. So Bonham would have been, another one right after Ringo. Obviously Ian Pace, Carl Palmer, Carl's been my friend since I was 11 years old. So, I just talked to him 2 days ago. He and my dad, we were actually, funny story, how I met Carl was that my dad was in London for the first time when I was 11. And Carl kept getting thrown out of the hotel where we were staying because he wanted to meet my dad. So we finally came downstairs and he kind of pounced on him. And one of the security guards in the hotel was headed to throw him out. And my dad said, no, let him stay, let him talk. So we became friends from that day to this. So, Carl is a great drummer and, love Buddy. Then, you go down the line. Dennis Chambers is fantastic. Dave Weckl is fantastic. There's not a drummer, out there that doesn't bring something that I can say I like. So, right. That's kind of a weird question. But, yes, there are a few that I don't like, but I like most. Let's put it that way.
I think she missed one name.
Well, Gregg, obviously.
There's one name that I didn't really hear her mention, but I'll leave the room. You guys can keep going.
Gregg, and throw it to you, Gregg. Answer the same question, Gregg, if you'd be so kind. I know it's a tough question, but the drummers of yesterday, and with the exception of Buddy and Louie, who knocks you out to this day?
I mean, to this day, I mean, it is.
And there's some drummers that I haven't even mentioned that knocked me out to this day. I mean, there's a guy named Chris Coleman, unbelievable. There's a guy that plays with Gino Kelly. I mean, have you heard this guy that plays with Gino Vanelli? I can't even remember his name.
I don't even know his name.
But unbelievable.
Yeah, there's
drummer.
talent.
There's talent everywhere.
And that's what I was going to say. It's like departmentalized for me. And that, just like when we were talking about, like, if am I a Tower of Power fan, I really, when we bring up drummers, I really appreciate what, like, people bring to a group. As a soloist, yes, are there men that have, of course, you watch Weckl play a set of drums, there's really not many chops the man can't perform, say snare drum-wise, tom-wise. But then again, I don't want to see Dave Weckl play with Judas Priest.
Right.
When Scott Travis played double bass with Racer X back in 1986, that to me, for that genre and that playing, that's where my head's at. Now, would I want to see Scott Travis play with the Buddy Rich Big Band? Maybe not. I mean, yes, I would like to, just so we'd have something to talk about. But I'm saying the way these people fit in and that's why I was saying Buddy's drumming. I know we're not talking about Buddy, but I'm saying growing up, I would usually departmentalize stuff. I mean, listening to Danny Seraphin play with Chicago, he defined that band for me. Yes, that's to put my head around it and go, well, wait a second, what if they were to get Bobby Colomby from Blood, Sweat, and Tears to play in Chicago? Well, I don't know if the beginning fill and Make Me Smile is going to sound the same. So I kind of really liked where they presented themselves. As a soloist, there was nothing growing up as a kid, watching Carl Palmer play on California Jam 1974. Was Carl Palmer's solo any better than Tommy Aldridge's solo? I'm talking about, you asked me as a kid, a child. Did you figure 1974, you got California Jam, Tommy Aldridge playing with Black Oak, Arkansas, and Carl Palmer playing with ELP, and Ian Pace playing with Deep Purple, all on one stage. And then on the other hand, you got Buddy Rich recording the Roar 74 album. So I mean, think of what you had at that time for a skull full of mush to say, which one do I really want now, or which one am I following? So I'm saying I grew up with all of that stuff, and then not to mention you're talking about playing with a click track. I also grew up in the 70s when you heard live albums like Kiss Alive. You want to talk about a meter problem? God bless them. I love Kiss and I love Peter Criss, but I grew up in the days playing drums before the click track, where it was like, you mean you're not supposed to speed up in the chorus and then slow down for the verse? Or then one of my favorite albums of all time, that live Pat Travers album, Go For What You Know, with Tommy Aldridge playing. Then years later, I finally get to meet Pat Travers and play with him, and he tells me, do you see, I only hired Tommy because of his drum solos. I used to like to watch his drum solos. Playing with Tommy was a time machine wreck. He goes, I would bust heels off boots stomping on the stage to get Tommy to slow down. Now, to me, an audience member, just a drummer, it's, but that's just where I see. Okay, go on.
No, I'm just saying it's funny because you say I played with Tommy years ago in Palm Springs, and after we did this thing, we played like Black Magic Woman, and he put his spin on it. Then after the timbale solo, afterwards, he walked up to me and he says, Jackie, he goes, let me tell you something. That timbale solo was tighter than an ant's ass stretched over a drum. When he said that to me, man, I mean, that was one of the funniest things. And you know what blows me out of the water right now, kids? We're on the last 16 seconds of the fifth segment, going into number 6. And on number 6, we're going to talk about everything that's got to do with Cathy Rich and Gregg Prater, and how our fans and your listening fans can stalk you. So when that comes back, you guys, on segment number 6, it's blown out, man. Last segment of a 2-hour interview that could go 2 more hours. So with that said, guys, don't go anywhere. Jackie Bertoni, Jackie's Groove Talk Radio Network, Cathy Rich. Don't go anywhere, guys. They're really in on the last segment. Stay tuned.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on intertalkradio.com.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Shelley Sondheim, President CEO of CSM Words and Music. You're listening to Jackie's Groove with Jackie Bertoni.
Welcome to Jackie's Groove. Come journey with us through the rhythm of the music business with your host, Jackie Bertoni.
Welcome back to segment number 6. This is Jackie Bertoni. Jackie's Groove, brought to you by Talk Network. You're into all things music. Guys, that is music. Timeless music, good music never gets old. And the only thing that gets old is us, the people playing it. So, you guys, welcome back. I'm having such an amazing time with my studio guest today, Miss Cathy Rich, and also with Gregg Potter. You guys, I love you, man. And even though I feel like I've known you guys forever itself, we got much more ahead of us because we're going to definitely have to do a segment number 2 because we haven't even touched on the first 20 years, and we're going to do that. And again, and I'm proud and I'm privileged, man, because we are the only vetted show that is doing what we're doing on the marketplace. Musicians talking to musicians, and everybody that says afterwards, "Done." I'm not blowing smoke up my own ass, but everybody has a great time. We're on the show, and we're very appreciative of that. And you guys also putting your best foot forward to accept our invitation, and we thank you. And we want to thank Jag Entertainment for making this possible, and Nicole, and to Joanne Geffen. Thank you, girls, very much for making this happen. And also, too, guys, I want to do a little bit of business, because if I don't do this business, I usually do this in segment 5, but I'm having too much fun. But again, we want to keep the lights on. So with that said, couple minutes, you guys. I want to say thank you to our great sponsors, Pitbull Audio, Calvin Lee and the Motley Crew over at Pitbull Audio, and that's pitbullaudio.com. They just want you to play it loud. Somebody I'm sure that Gregg and Cathy and myself are familiar with, a company called SIR, Studio Instrument Rentals. And for all of your backline and studio rehearsal needs, absolutely, that's SIR-USA.com. Now, guys, I got to do a little bit of business of my own. My drumstick company for the past 23 years. Love them. Guys, thank you so much. Vater Percussion, VATER.com. And also Gregg and Alan Vader and all the guys. And here's our correlation here. Sabian Cymbals, 23 years. And yes, Andy Zildjian, we just sponsored a show with them at Pitbull Audio where Sabian came out and hand-hammered last weekend their actual cymbals on our National City, California. And so with that said, 23 years Sabian, thank you. That's SABIAN.com. Our newest sponsors, DW, Drum Workshop Incorporated, John Good and Don Lombardi. Thank you guys very much. You can reach them at DWDrums.com, and somebody I'm most biased to. My drum percussion company for the past 27 years, LPmusic.com. Thank you guys, Terry, Jerry, Derek, for your support in my career. Thank you guys so much. So with that said, welcome back to the last segment of this. You guys, it all takes, I use this term myself, you can't do this with yourself. I've got my crew, Cedric and Megan, my boy and girl in the studio taking care of situations. Paul, our COO, and also manning the boards right now with Cedric. Can't do it without him. And the thing, most importantly, I can't do it without is our CEO, my brother from another mother, as they say, Mr. Florentino Buenaventura. And Florentino's going to come on and say, hey, and he's going to extract some knowledge out of you guys. So with that said, Cathy, Gregg, say hi to Florentino. Yeah. Florentino, say hi to the kids.
Hey, Cathy, Gregg, how you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good. Man, Gregg, I enjoyed that track. I was, got a chance to see the video where that track came from, that with the last one we just had. And brother, you got it down, man. It was just very good testament to Mr. Rich, because, it's just, it's heartwarming to see real talent, and especially if it's paying tribute and honor to, talent that has shaped and changed the way music industry and music in general is appreciated. So thanks to both of you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And we've been talking here. We're actually going to be compiling some fun lists for some of these students. We work a lot with schools. We were with UCSD yesterday, Berklee College of Music, right. A number of the different ones.
Yeah.
And one of the things we find in this new generation is there's a slight disconnect from the masters and the people that came before them. And I would put Buddy at the top of that list of drummers that you need to listen to if you want to be a drummer. And we're going to be compiling lists like that. And that's an important thing, because we want to share with these drummers that must listen. So the songs, the albums, the people they play with. Here is what we suggest to you guys. And when, like I said, Buddy is definitely gonna be part of that, and the celebration of Buddy's life will be part of that for sure.
Great, thank you. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Education is important. So the history. If you don't know the history of things, you really you can't see where you're going. You have to look back in order to look ahead.
Exactly.
So these people today that are playing that. That love my father, you've got to go back and look at what he did and how he paved the way for others to do what they're doing today.
Exactly. There would be no John Bonhams without Buddy Rich. There would be no, Neil Peart's, and all these incredibly fluid drummers they wouldn't be there without the amazing, talents that and there would be no Greggs. So, it's a big testament. And, I've been a huge fan. My folks were huge fans of your dad. So it's a big honor for us. And, kind of with that said, this whole thing about our network, and our network's all about sharing, the stories and behind the scenes tales and the techniques and all the things that make up, who these great artists are. And that's what our network's all about. So, with that said, we'd like to, in this segment, get all the ways they can find out more about the celebration, about your dad, about Gregg, about all the other things that are attached to it. So shoot, guys, give me some URLs, some Facebook, some social media stuff and all that fun stuff.
Well, obviously, first and foremost is thebuddyrichband.com. That gives you, our touring schedule. There's a store there. There's videos. There's, everything that you'd want to know about the band and us and what we're doing. You can stalk us there. You can also stalk Gregg at greggpotter.com, which gives, that gives you all of Gregg's history and what he's been doing, and, video there of all of the stuff that we've done together and stuff he's done before. What else is there? There's buddyrich.com, and obviously, YouTube is a double-edged sword.
Right?
It's good to go back and watch and get to see, all of the things that Buddy did. There's a lot of the Carson shows on YouTube. There's, a lot of the stuff that I did with Hudson Music is on YouTube. The last memorial concert that we did with DW Drums in 2008 with Neil Peart and Chad Smith and Terry Bozzio and on and on and on. That's there. So, yeah, those are probably the best avenues. Obviously, my Facebook page is Cathy Rich. Gregg Potter has his Facebook page. Obviously, Instagram and Twitter. We're everywhere. So just, look for us and you'll find us.
Well, I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind shooting us those links, or maybe have your publicist, have the publicist shoot us all those links. When we put the archives up, our podcast version of this live, we'll put those in for sure.
Sure. No problem. We'll do it.
Perfect. Well, guys, I'm going to pass you back to Jackie, because I know that, like he said, this 2 hours seems like it's a long interview but it's never enough.
Oh, it went by very fast. I can't believe it.
All right. Take it away, Jackie.
Thanks, bro. I'll see you tomorrow in the studio, Tino. Thank you, brother.
Sounds good, bro.
Hey, guys.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome, Greg. Much appreciated to you and your talents, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys. Let me ask you this question, kids, and I got to ask this, on a regular basis. Gregg and Cathy, we work our asses off as young players coming up and stuff, and we want to make sure that we work as hard as we can to get the best rig out there in the marketplace. Then we find ourselves years later to be thrust in the forefront and being world famous, for the lack of a better word. And then with that said, as I said a little earlier in the segment, is that we are sponsored by these great iconic drum companies, drumstick companies, Sabian, cymbals, etc. And then all of a sudden, the stuff that we worked so hard for as kids is now given to us. And we're continually thankful for that. So with that said, I want both of you guys to go ahead and take a couple seconds and thank your sponsors, not your own URLs, but go ahead and give a shout out to the people that backlined Cathy and Gregg, please.
Well, obviously, first and foremost, Ludwig Drums, that, they do a magnificent job in recreating, Buddy's kit. And actually now coming out in the summer will be an actual Buddy Rich 100th birthday kit that they are doing, which is down to the nuts and bolts, exactly, canister thrown, everything that Buddy played. So that is spectacular, and we've been working on that for the past year, and finally that is coming out this summer. So you can go to ludwig.com or, wherever to find the kit, but it is a beautiful testament to, Buddy and the kits that he played. So obviously Ludwig. Trick Drums did a special Buddy Rich 100th birthday snare drum that is absolutely magnificent. Michael Dorfman and Trick Drums did, Gregg and I designed it, and they just took our vision and ran with it, and it's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful snare drum. Vic Firth did a 100th birthday stick for Buddy that'll only be available this year. We've been with Vic Firth since Buddy passed away, so, that's a 30-year relationship that, is amazing. And Buddy's sticks are, one of the top, 5 sellers at Vic Firth, so we love them. Aquarian Drumheads do a special Buddy Rich head. So they've been Gregg's head company for years. Who else? Sabian, obviously. They're fantastic over there. Gibraltar Hardware. Who else?
Dream Ears.
In-ear
monitors.
Right.
A Florida company.
Berg do our cases.
Do all our cases and do the replica music stands, the white music stands.
Yep.
They too, custom company. Allow you to. They make the cases match the pearl on my drums. And they'll do that for not just like you were talking about. You work your whole career and then you get to work with these companies. What's great about a lot of the companies now, especially Humes and Berg, they'll work with you even if you're not the drummer in Van Halen. They'll custom make whatever you want. Mike Berg at Humes and Berg is one of the most hands-on owners of a company with the last name Berg. That's his company. What other companies? We have.
I think that's about it. That's a lot of companies.
Those are a lot. Yeah, we do have a lot of people that have been generous and again
wonderful.
They're wonderful. It's the best equipment, the best equipment in the world, and there's nothing like when you are out there doing what you're doing. There's nothing like having the best behind you. And these companies behind you, in front of you, however, they have been nothing but generous and nothing but short of just spectacular. The gear is from the drums, the cymbals, the sticks, the heads. Everyone has just been wonderful. I know it sounds corny after a while,
no,
but
not
realistically, you
have to give, you have to give thanks and you have to give back to all the people that have supported you through the years. And, we're firm believers in giving back.
Right.
You have to.
People believed in stuff. I had been with these companies prior to the Buddy Rich Band, and these companies have been with me. Sabian, Vic Firth, Aquarian, all these companies, I was on their rosters, it didn't all just happen 5 years ago. And these companies have continually been behind me, and now that I'm doing something that, because also in this business, you understand it is a business, and one day you're doing something incredible, the next day you're doing something not as incredible. So, for these people to stick with you throughout incredible times and not so incredible times,
sure.
It's
As Miss Janet Jackson once said, what have you done for me lately? As they said, and guys, there's that damn interview. I mean, that reverb. In the last 3 minutes and 45 seconds, guys, I have to ask this question. I'm not going to be a Barbara Walters of talk radio, but I'm just going to ask this question to you. And Cathy, I'm going to put this to you, sweetheart, if I may be so kind. First, I'm going to ask, first and foremost, coming up on the big celebration, please reach out. Have your publicist to give us a call. We'd love to be part of anything that's got to do with Buddy Rich's 100th anniversary as we get closer and closer. And we're going to go ahead and send you the links to this archive, and you guys can definitely blanket social media and such. I friended you, Cathy, and I friended you, Gregg, on Facebook. So when you guys get a chance, go ahead and accept that. But with that said, Cathy, do me this favor, sweetheart. If Daddy was alive today, I'm an orphan, and I always say if I can talk to my Rock of Gibraltar, my mom, my father-in-law, who I lost a year ago in November. If Papa was alive today, and again, this is not Barbara Walters. You want to cry? Go ahead. Bring out the tissues, folks. For the last 2.5 seconds, 2.5 minutes, what would you say to Daddy?
Wow. That's rough, because in order for me to do what I do, I really have to keep myself in the third person, because the emotion is so close to the surface, all the time. And we were just, as I mentioned, we were just in London at Ronnie Scott's Club, and that was the last place I was with my father in 1986, right before he died. So going on the stage there the first night, I mean, the emotion just took over, and I was like a blubbering idiot. But if I could talk to him today, I would ask him if I had done all of the things that he wanted me to do, and if he was happy with the way that we have done it. And I think I know the answer, because I feel him around me all the time. But I like to think that in the years since he has been gone, that I have done at least some of the things that he asked me to do, and done him proud, because he was the most amazing man and father that certainly I've known, because he's the only one I've known, but I certainly know a lot of other fathers, and he was just an amazing man. And he taught me many things, and how to be in the world, and what your responsibility is in the world. And, I would like to ask him if he thought that I had, done the things that he wanted me to do.
I love it. And again, too, buddy, I know you're looking down depending where your faith is. Of course, I was born and raised Catholic, untouched. But nonetheless, I believe there's something greater than us that are down here. So, buddy, I want to thank you, not as a drummer, but also as a percussionist and as a man of that's been given the praises of great timing. I mean, nobody has timing, a human click track of the arms of your father and your hands of your father. And for those of age and those of youth, if those of you are not familiar with Buddy Rich, crawl out from underneath that rock you've been living under and educate yourself quickly, because you can't teach an old dog a new trick. And so with that said, guys, I just want everybody, just from the bottom of my heart, Gregg, Cathy, thank you so much for accepting the invitation. We couldn't be more proud. Our roster is growing by leaps and bounds, and we hopefully can ask you if you guys had a great time, because we've had a great time. And so with that said, guys, go on to our website, www.jackiesgroove.com and www.intertalkradio.com, and we're going to go ahead and add these links once your publicist give it to us, so we can have it there. People can reach out and do that. So, guys, with that said, love you guys. Godspeed. Thank you for the music. Thank you for your hearts. Thank you for your time. And everybody, please, Gregg Potter and Cathy Rich for joining Jackie's Groove. We love you guys. We will talk to you all soon. As I finish up all my shows, guys, I remember these last 3 words: peace through music. Thanks, Gregg. Thanks, Cathy. All of our love and blessings.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be a music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time, or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.